All right, today we're going to tackle a really powerful idea, one that might just change how you look at, well, everything, from huge global conflicts all the way down to your own social circles. It's called relationalism. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll have a brand new toolkit for making sense of our incredibly complex world. So let's get into it.
So we're going to start with a massive question, one that's been all over the news and has sparked some of the most intense debates out there. Why did Russia invade Ukraine back in February 2022? I mean, this is a question with absolutely enormous consequences.
And if you've been following the news, you know the debate pretty much boils down to two big stories, right? On one side, you have the argument about Russian aggression. This view says it's all about Vladimir Putin's ambition to restore some kind of former Russian glory. But then, on the other side, you have people blaming decades of NATO expansion, arguing that it backed Russia into a corner, making the invasion feel to them like a defensive move.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Even though those two arguments are total opposites, they both secretly rely on the exact same kind of thinking. They both lean heavily on a big what-if question. For instance, the people who blame NATO expansion are always asking, well, what if NATO hadn't expanded? Would the war still have happened? But that question, it is way, way trickier than it looks.
Just think about it for a second. 30 years of different foreign policy decisions don't just change one single event, they change everything. We'd probably be looking at different leaders in power, completely different alliances, maybe even different national borders. Would the EU be the same? Would NATO even exist as we know it? You see, the world wouldn't just be a little bit different. The entire political map of Europe would be almost unrecognizable.
So here's the real kicker. The problem with those common arguments isn't necessarily the facts they're using. No, it's a deep, hidden assumption they both share. This idea that the world is just a collection of fixed, unchanging things with set identities.
And this hidden assumption has a name. It's called substantialism. It's basically the idea that the world is made up of these separate, predefined things. Like Russia, the United States, NATO, and each one has its own permanent identity instead of interests. It's like looking at the world as a giant chessboard, where all the pieces are already carved out and you know exactly how they're supposed to move.
And this worldview usually comes in two flavors. You've got holism, which says the big system is what matters most, like the structure of the world forces countries to act in certain ways. And then you've got individualism, which says, no, it's all about the individual actors themselves, their psychology or what they want. But here's the key thing they both agree on. The pieces on the board exist before the game even starts.
But let's just pause here. What if we've been looking at this completely backwards? What if we flip the whole script? What if the game itself is what creates the pieces?
And that right there is where relationalism comes in. It flips that script entirely. Relationalism argues that the relationships, the interactions, the connections, the back and forth are the actual building blocks of everything. So instead of thinking about pre-existing things that interact, the idea is that the interaction itself is what creates the things in the first place, shaping their identities and even what they want.
The famous sociologist Pierre Bourdieu put this so well. He said that a quality we think of as being internal to something, like being distinguished or part of a certain class, is actually, quote, a relational property existing only in and through its relation with other properties. In other words, you are who you are because of your relationship to everybody and everything else.
And that's a huge deal, right? It means a country's so-called national interest or a leader's identity isn't some fixed thing they just have from the start. It's an outcome. It's something that's always being made and remade through this constant dance of interacting with others.
Okay, so if relationships are what really matter, how do we actually see them in action? Well, relational thinkers have this kind of toolkit with a few key lenses they use to analyze the world. Let's walk through 4 of the big ones. First up, we've got networks. This is probably the most straightforward one. It's about literally mapping out the web of connections. Who trades with whom? Who has diplomatic ties? It's about seeing the threads that connect everyone. Second, you've got fields. Now, think of this like a sports field where all the different players, countries, corporations, activists are all competing for position and power inside a specific game, like the European security field. Third, there's assemblages. This one's a little trickier, but it's this cool way of seeing a country not as a solid block, but as this messy, shifting combination of agencies, laws, technologies, and people. And finally, repertoires. This is all about the learned scripts or the playbooks that actors use. Think about the standard ways you conduct diplomacy or the typical tactics protesters use. Those are learned, shared repertoires.
So we've got our new relational toolkit.
What does this actually do for our original puzzle? How does looking through these new lenses really change how we understand the war in Ukraine?
Well, from this new perspective, asking what if NATO hadn't expanded isn't just tricky, it's the completely wrong question. It's broken from the start because it assumes you can just magically pull one massive set of interactions out of history and expect everything else, all the players, their identities, to just stay the same.
A world that didn't have 30 years of NATO expansion isn't our world with just one thing changed. It's a world where the very identity of Russia, of Europe, and of the West would have been built differently through a totally different set of relationships. The players themselves would be different because the game that shaped them for 3 decades never even happened. The competitive field of European security would have different rules, and the network of alliances that defines the West and Russia today wouldn't exist in the same way.
So this is really the big takeaway. Relationalism yanks our focus away from static things and puts it squarely on dynamic processes. The most important question isn't what nations are, but how their constant interactions are shaping what they are, always in the process of becoming.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory for a classroom. Shifting our lens from substances to relations fundamentally changes the kinds of questions we ask, and that, in turn, can change the kinds of solutions we can even imagine for the biggest problems we face.
And that brings us to one last thought to leave you with. If this constant flow of relationships is what remakes the entire world on a global scale, it raises a really personal question. What are the relationships at your job, in your neighborhood, even online, that are constantly remaking you?